The president saying to Reuters yesterday something similar to what he told Joe Kernan earlier in the summer in terms of his relationship with the Fed and his expectations for what the Fed ought to do. Take a look at some of the key points here from the interview with Reuters. The president saying that he is, quote, not thrilled with Jerome Powell for raising interest rates. And he said the Fed should be more accommodating. The president also said, I should be given some help by the Fed. And he said he'll continue to criticize the Fed if it continues raising rates. He also made some news on a couple of other topics. The president talking about Twitter and Facebook, saying it's very dangerous for those companies to self-regulate content on their platforms. And he also said that China and the EU are manipulating their currencies. So the president speaking out on a range of topics here. I talked to Sarah Huckabee Sanders yesterday after Reuters published that interview with the president. I asked her if there was something intentional here going on in terms of the president's messaging about the Fed. Is he deliberately targeting the Fed? And she said, no, he was just responding to a question from the Reuters reporters. This isn't a deliberate piece of timing here by the White House in terms of releasing this criticism right now. But when you talk to officials at the White House, you do get the sense that this is not a president who views the traditional deference that presidents have shown to Fed chiefs as something, as a model for the way he wants to operate. This president very much feels that he's going into the midterms. He's going into a 2020 reelect. He is worried that ultimately the Fed is going to pull the punch bowl away from the party and cool down the economy at a time when he wants the economy to be heating up. There you see the two men in happier times when the president nominated Jerome Powell for the Fed. So the question is now, how will Jerome Powell take these comments? Will the Fed in any way be affected by this? Or conversely, does this lock in the Fed to doing what it had suggested it might do just to show that they're independent of political pressure here? So a lot of unknowns in terms of the way the president's carrying out this strategy, guys.
Hey, Eamon, I thought what was significant was not just that the comments that he's not thrilled with Powell, but he took it even further than that. And my guess is, again, this is because Joe asked him these questions initially. He responded in a way that a lot of people didn't expect, so I'm sure the reporters kind of pushed in on that. But he went so far as to say, my advisors told me otherwise, that he would be much more in love with the idea of having lower rates. You know, made it sound like
he said he thought he would be a loose money guy.
Right.
Right.
You know, having known Jay Powell for a while, having talked to him on the show, I'm not sure why he would get that impression because, you know, Jay Powell seems like he's a guy who's always been pretty straightforward, and he's going to look at the numbers and he's going to do what he thinks is right at that moment. Right.
You know, all that was probably in a briefing book kicking around the White House somewhere at the time that the president nominated Jerome Powell for the job. But look, the president, looks at this and his advisors look at this, and there's a feeling inside the White House that the macroeconomics don't support the idea of raising rates right now, that's going to cool off the economy. The president wants some help with the economic recovery, and he feels like he's not getting it. So he's frustrated, and he's going to speak out when he's frustrated.
Like the movie, Eamon, I picked a bad day to stop. It's never a good time to raise rates. Once you're the guy, on January 20th, Trump changed from this is a big old nasty bubble, inflated by the Fed to, wow, we can't raise rates. This is
go, baby, go, right?
And on January 21st, the economy is cranking because of him, and it wasn't a bubble anymore. But that's just, that's the nature. I think the nature of the business. And
well, look, we've seen it before,
this, I think,
right?
is just jawboning. I don't think he's going to call, Powell in his office and say, "I'm going to fire you if you don't." If you don't play along. And you remember,
I don't think Congress would support it anyway.
Right. You remember the first Bush.
Well, that raises a great question. Yeah. Can he even fire Jerome Powell? I mean, apparently there is a provision in the law that would allow the president theoretically to fire the Fed chief for cause. But then you get into the question of, what is cause? It's never been done before.
Because you're raising rates.
Would Congress allow it? Right, yeah, cause you're raising rates. Cause I said so. How about that's for cause?
Cause is a nebulous.
That's sort of the way I deal with my kids.
Sorkin and I was reading the Les Moonves stuff yesterday about what cause actually. $200 million if they don't come up with a cause. And can they win on a cause? I don't even know if you can. If it's 2004 and it's like he's hitting on someone, is that cause? I don't even know whether.
It may not be cause at the time, but it'll be cause on the way the contract. There's a morals clause and all sorts of things.
There was something there about specifically about sexual harassment, and this thing.
I don't know. I don't know if it's been pushed too far.
$200 million. Damn, Eamon, you got a contract like that?
It's 188, right?
I do have a contract that doesn't require them to pay me
Price of
anything if
CBS
they
at
fire
any
me,
given
though.
point.
Are there more zeros on his?
I'm out. If they fire me, I'm just out on the street
You're
with
done.
my little box.
Right. You got to take you'll be carrying it yourself.
Little cardboard box. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
How much does Jay Powell get paid if the president fires him?
Right.
Trillions of dollars.
Yeah, it's in Venezuelan currency,
Right,
too.
right.
It's the value now. Anyway.
I mean, we're in unknown territory there, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
the president is sending a signal, and we're going to have to watch the Fed and see if the signal is received.